Hello demons, it's your girl Lucy, and in a previous video I asked if you guys would want me to do like an entire video on just one of my characters where I wrote out some of their backstory and like read it to you and explained more specifically them. And nobody told me that they wanted that, but I went and did it anyway, so yeah, please
The
watch it.
nothingness that surrounded them was
New. Much different than the buzz of light and magic from where they came from. They could no longer sense the presence of other beings, some similar to them, in the way that they were too not quite real. Drifting in between of reality and fantasy we find in our imagination. Magic. Now, instead of feeling them, or feeling the distant yet very real presence of beings that they could only imagine, ones that had true physical forms, they had been dragged away from this comforting existence into something of a void. They had been waiting there for, well, they don't know quite how long, as they had never had a means of keeping track of time, never needed to. Now their curiosity was quickly growing, as every so often something would seem to be breaking through this barren landscape, creating cracks that glowed in the darkness, trying to drag them again out of what they had grown to know. That is, until one day the cracks became too large, breaking the very barrier between the real and fantastical, and bringing with it so many new sounds and smells and sights they had never been able to hear or smell or see before, only sense. Now they had begun to feel more and more as their magic was being interwoven with very real, very physical body. There was a sudden rush of emotions that they had never knew were possible to feel. They weren't previously. But now that they were let into this new world, there were endless possibilities. The excitement started to become too much for them. When the lights finally stopped spinning, they could begin to figure out where they were. They could feel something cold and hard beneath them, and as their eyes began to focus, they could see a dingy room filled with an array of different tools that they weren't sure of what they were for. They took their first breath, and their lungs filled with cold, damp air that clearly hadn't seen the surface in many months. But to him, this young boy he had become, it was wonderful. He finally opened his eyes wide to take it all in and saw a man looking down at him with a cold expression. He was difficult to read, but it felt like he was looking at him like he was something he had been waiting for, working towards. But it hadn't turned out quite right. Dada! He reached his new arms up towards the man. He had never spoken a word before, but it felt right to call him that. Do not call me that, the man snarled, looking disgusted. He didn't know what he had done wrong. He loved the man. He just wanted to make him happy. He had never felt love before, but he was sure this was it. Da! He squealed again with a big smile to let the man know that he was happy to see him. Maybe it would make him feel better. He pushed himself up on unsteady legs and began to stumble towards him. That's when the man made a quick, sudden movement that sent him sprawling back onto the ground, a white-hot pain searing through his cheek as he felt a trickle of blood. Tears rushed to his eyes, and he was about to scream at the new pain when the man grabbed his wrist so tight it hurt, lifting him off the ground. He had just begun wailing when the man snapped at him. I gave you an order. You do not disobey me. I created you, and you will do as I say, or you will get worse than a slap. He hissed in a way that made his skin crawl, feeling fear for the first time. You will call me master. He stopped abruptly, watching him with new curiosity as the pain in his cheek began to subside. His crying quieted to a whimper while the blood slithered back into the cut, the wound sealing itself closed and leaving fresh, untouched skin in its place. The man stopped for a moment before pulling out a gun and shooting a bullet through his skull. That was the day he learned he could not die. So that was how our boy Nikko was created. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen such a harsh introduction to reality, but yeah, that's how Nikko joined this world. I mean, he's a cutie though. I love him. He's so sweet. He really does just love his father very much. But I do have some other things from Nico's early life, two more things to read you, so I hope you enjoyed that one, but let's get into the next. Nikko, 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 Nikko. He babbled repetitively to himself. That was his new name. He had come up with it all by himself. He was learning lots of new words, and he found he really liked talking. Master did not, though, so he really tried not to, but it was hard when there was so much to talk about. Master had threatened to cut his tongue off to make him stop, but he had found it just grew back, so he settled for taping his mouth shut. Nikko was left alone forever, or at least it felt like forever. When Master was out being the best villain ever, Nikko was kept in a cage in a huge basement that he had under his house. Master said it used to be a dog cage. Nikko didn't know what a dog was, but he imagined it was something dangerous if it had to be kept in a cage. Like he was. He was going to be the best and most dangerous villain in the whole world, just like Master wanted. And he was already training. He had learned all sorts about being a villain, like how to be mean. He wasn't sure how much he liked that part, but if it was what Master wanted, he also learned what bunnies were. Master had brought down a bunny once to show him, and it was so cute. Nikko loved that bunny. He had funny, floppy ears and a twitchy nose, and Master let him play with the bunny. He had named the bunny Socks, because he had black fur near his feet that looked like socks. When Master took the bunny away, he promised Nikko that he would see him again. He didn't lie. Master had been trying to see what powers he had other than just being able to heal himself. Nikko could feel the magic. He could sense it was there, could feel it when it shifted and moved around him, but couldn't figure out how to grab it. He had only vague memories of what it was like before he was created, but other than that, the centuries before his physical form might as well have not happened. Master was not pleased with this, and once he learned that Nikko's magic wouldn't activate through fear for his own safety, he had figured he'd try something else. He looked around with wide eyes as he was strapped into a chair by some of the men that worked for his master. They always wore these completely black masks and never spoke to him. He thought they were funny people. They put a sort of hat on his head, with wires sticking out of it, which he wanted to reach up and touch, but couldn't as they bound his arms to the armrest of the chair. They then quickly filed out of the room and closed the metal door behind him, so he was alone. He looked for something interesting, but saw nothing but gray metal walls around him. So he started babbling on to himself, practicing new words he had learned and making repetitive noises that kept him entertained. This was interrupted by metal doors across from where he sat, opening to reveal a glass cage with a bunny sitting inside. Socks! He squealed gleefully, wondering when they would get to play again. Socks hopped across the cage, and his big black ears dragged on the ground behind him, making Nikko giggle as he watched. Bunnies were so funny. Then the sides of the cage opened and revealed spinny thingies that moved toward the bunny. Nikko's laugh quieted as he looked closer. Spinny, shiny, sharp, sharp. Those would hurt Socks. At that he began to panic. He knew sharp things were painful, and he didn't want the bunny to feel that way. Who put him there? They can't do that. Socks is his friend. He didn't have any other ones. He could feel pressure inside his chest, like something wanted to get out. It kept growing until he could feel it rising in his throat, pushing in the backs of his eyes and crawling through his blood. His thoughts kept racing, his emotions kept rising until he couldn't tell if he felt fear or anger or something else. Then it exploded. The chains holding his arms and legs disintegrated into dust as cracks formed on the walls, reaching toward the cage. The blade shattered, and Nikko jumped out of his seat and ran to the bunny, kneeling on the ground, holding him in his arms. "It's okay, Socks. You're a good bunny," he sniffled, playing with Socks' ears. Suddenly, Master was in front of him. He had a habit of doing that, disappearing and reappearing in shadows. They followed him around. Nikko noticed he had more shadows than one probably should. "Bunny!" he exclaimed with a tear-filled, gap-toothed smile, showing him that Socks was okay. Master smiled a large, toothy grin. "Yes, Bunny," he cooed, gently picking up the rabbit and stroking its back as his smile softened. Nikko liked when people smiled. Then he knew that they were happy. Sometimes emotions could get too complicated to understand, but a smile was simple. That's when Black's claws shot out from Master's hands, cutting through Socks' skin like it was nothing, and dropping the mangled mess onto the ground in front of him. Nikko sat there for a moment, his mouth opening and closing like he wanted to scream or say something, but he couldn't find his voice. That was the day he learned that others could die. Okay, so I'm slowly starting to realize that this video might be very depressing. Very tragic. I want to get his tragic backstory out of the way. I swear the comic that I'm planning will be cute and funny and sweet, and it also will dive into this backstory. There are sweet moments with Nikko. He is a very good person despite him wanting to be a villain, okay? I want to clarify that. And he's a very sweet and quirky and just an overall adorable person, and I love him. But the next one I wrote is also sad, so I'm very sorry for that, guys. But yeah, let's get on to the last thing that I wrote. It's much shorter, so stick around. Nikko skipped alongside his master, holding onto his hand, which was likely the only thing grounding him enough to not run off and explore all the new sights. He had never been out of the super secret villainy lair thing before, but he was older now, and Master had finally let him come into town. He had never been so excited before, but he had to remind himself to be good and not get too excited. He was a big kid, and that meant being calm and mature. He looked to his right and saw plenty of other kids playing on brightly colored plastic, with wood chunks for the ground and plenty of things to climb on and swing on. It looked fun. They all laughed and talked to each other and ran around chasing one another. Nikko wondered if that was something most kids did. He wished he could, but he knew Master would not allow that. He was different from the other kids. It made him feel lonely. He wished he had someone to talk to other than himself. He didn't think talking to Master was quite the same. He had learned he wasn't the best for conversation, and eventually even talking to his imaginary friends started to feel like talking to no one. Master kept walking. He was wearing a long black cloak and big black hat that shadow covered almost his entire face. Nikko thought this hat looked funny, but he quickly learned that Master did not appreciate that. No one seemed to notice them. Even when Nikko would smile and wave at the other kids, it was like they looked right through him. His smile waned as he looked at all the other kids running around with friends and family that loved them. But Master surely loved him, just like Nikko loved Master. So that is all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed learning more about Nikko's backstory. I definitely have more scenes of his backstory that are also pretty dark, but I swear he's going to be happy and, have cute scenes in the comic if I ever get around to actually making that. It's just he still will be dealing with this trauma, and I wanted to kind of show like more of his backstory and like what it was actually like for him growing up and the things that he felt, even if he does constantly try and act happy and cheerful and all of that, that he actually is dealing with a lot. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and please let me know if you want to hear more of about my characters in the comments. Even if you don't, I probably will make more anyway. Anyway, bye guys!